Okay.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Don't Forget Your War Chest. I'm Scott Tucker, founder of US VetWealth and author of the brand new book, Don't Forget Your War Chest, the ultimate guide for military retirees deciding on what you should do about the survivor benefit plan, but really, more importantly, what to do about it if you want to opt out. Usually, folks find us because they've already decided they want to get out of the survivor benefit plan and they don't quite know what to do next or what the options are, or even financial professionals. Just got an email from someone who wants to chat with us about how they can use these solutions for their own clients, because we get it. This is outside the box thinking. It might go against the grain. It might be something completely new you've never heard about. Why isn't everybody doing this? I don't know. It's because until I figured it out a few years ago and put it together, for whatever reason, no one in the industry was doing it this way. And that's actually how this all got started. I was invited to a private conference at the headquarters of USAA with all the known names in the military finance blogging community, and nobody was talking about this problem. In fact, if they were, it was always from the, oh my gosh, thank goodness this survivor benefit plan is there to save the day for everybody. And that's sort of true, but is it true for everyone? Is it really true for those who don't need it or don't want it specifically, if it's going to frustrate their experiences of going through military retirement, getting out of the military, and finding the job that they want to do with passion and at the value and income that they've earned? And that's what we just had a great conversation with Mike Wallace from Blue Water about, as Jen was hosting for her podcast. But so anyways, today we are picking up from where we left off yesterday, doing kind of a preview of our workshop this weekend. So we do a lot more than talk about survivor benefit plan, but this is the catalyst for explaining what the war chest is. This is how we discovered the need for it and how it can be useful in a lot of different aspects of your post-military life. It's just answering the survivor benefit plan decision in a better way is what created all this. Is the frustration of saying, hey, I don't like this option, but the other option doesn't seem much better. Well, there's a third option. Surprise, surprise. Unfortunately, in the community of accredited financial counselors and certified financial planners, this one doesn't come up because it's not, usually they don't have the licenses or haven't ever sold these types of insurances before, so they don't know about it. And so it's easy to just say, no, we should do it the old school way. Before doing things the way before the iPhone was invented is kind of how I look at, the financial planning landscape and retirement planning landscape, especially for military retirees. If we're still looking at things like we did before, the iPhone is an obvious thing, but obviously a lot's changed in the last few years. So if we can upgrade in technology and other areas of life, what is it about the financial world that seems scary to upgrade to better things? And we're not talking about cryptocurrency or doing weird NFTs or any of that. No, it's always still the same stuff. There's some sort of investments and insurances and cash accounts. It's just, is your strategy still aligned with whatever it is you got started with doing your finances after the military? And what we find is that for the majority of military retirees, when they get to that military retirement date, they just haven't had a chance to think about this stuff for a number of years. Maybe early on they got excited about finances, but there comes a point where you hit enough rank or responsibility or just lose interest and realize, or better yet, you recognize that as much money as you can save, it's never going to be as much as you can make in income in post-military life. So part of the war chest strategy and what we're going to talk about today is taking a lot of the stress of the decision making. I call it decision stress. I made a whole video about this, in reducing the complexity as much as possible, so that you can focus on how you're going to spend your time, how you're going to build your talents, so that you can improve the treasure that not only you can earn, but then to keep and protect what you get. So privatizing away from just the cookie cutter following orders approach, or doing the same, save all your money in Roth IRAs and TSP and wait for 30 years and hope it works out. Yeah, we can do that with some of our money, but the real bang for the buck is going to be by protecting what you've already earned and then continuing to profit from it without risk. That's what the war chest is all about. It's just using life insurance. Okay. This isn't anything crazy, but if you never heard about life insurance used to ensure the income producing potential of a life, doesn't say anything about having to die to get a benefit from it. That's what's misunderstood about life insurance. We think it's only this catastrophic event scenario where, we need it just for the just in case. Well, we can also have it for the knowns. For the known situation that you as a military retiree are going to be a high income earner and likely a high net worth situation. And don't we want to just plan for that anyways? Wouldn't we like to assume that you as a military retiree are going to be you're a high performer in the military? You wouldn't have gotten there if you weren't there. So let's assume you're going to do well financially afterwards. Well, guess what wealthy people do with their money? At some point, you make too much money, or TSPs and Roths aren't really that sexy anymore, or you don't need to take the risks in the stock market. You don't need to take the risks in even just putting in an index fund because it's cheap. Since when is the cheapest thing good? If we're just outsourcing it and letting it ride up and down. Well, if you don't need to do that anymore, or maybe you don't need to do it with some of your assets or all your assets, and especially with how you're deciding to protect your military pension, we don't have to gamble on a maybe. And that's what we're going to talk about today, that the survivor benefit plan is very much a maybe. It seems like it's the end all be all. I mean, you get in the Facebook groups and it's going to say, oh, you're going to see one horror story of someone who luckily they had survivor benefit plan. Well, of course, because they didn't do anything else. So if we can do something else, the opportunity is to get you rewarded for your health. So we talked a lot about all that yesterday, and we're going to be talking about all this stuff at our workshop this weekend in Virginia Beach. So if you are in the area, make sure you're coming to that. Let me throw that up on the screen real quick. There we go. Moving fast. I was thinking, it's like I like doing these in the evenings because, but then I was like, man, I wish I had knocked this out at like 11 a.m. I think, and now that we get in the groove, maybe I will knock these out at 11 a.m. But hold on, let me remind everybody what our things this weekend. All right, cool. So we just talked to Mike. He'll be there this weekend. Trevor's going to be there. We got a bunch of other people who said they're coming. So if you're going to make it, or if you'd like to come, please RSVP on this Calendly link if you can, and I'll hit people up. Anyways, we're going to give away, free copies of the book. Bring a spouse. We'll have coffee and stuff there. And then for people who want to go, grab lunch and get some barbecue afterwards, maybe we'll do that for those who want to stick around. Otherwise, it's Town Center, Virginia Beach. Spend the day, and anyways, a lot of activities around there. There's bowling. You can go bowling afterwards. I haven't gone bowling. Arcade. There's a dog sitter there too. Dogtopia. We're using that. So wife, my beautiful wife, Jen, of course, will be there. Maybe it'd be important for you to learn a little bit more of her story. She is a Gold Star daughter. And so as much as people think we're out here just selling life insurance, yes, this is our business, and this is how we add value by helping those who want an alternative survivor benefit plan find a better way to do that. But it's more relevant to Jen and us than most because it was happened to her, and it wasn't enough for their family. And so while she was a young kid when it happened, we understand the impact of this. So we're not here to say what you should do with the survivor benefit plan. That's up to you. But I'm going to give you better information to make that decision. And really, I'm going to tell you the secret how to make it really quickly. It's really not that hard. You don't need to stress about this. And we can get you moving on to the things that are going to be more impactful, getting that high income post-military job. So let me pull up my slides so I can kind of pick up where we left off. And if you're watching, hit the like button, comment, ask me questions if you got any. And again, this is where I'm all just practicing, kind of testing, running through some ideas here on this live session here. So that's why it wasn't like a big announcement or anything. But anyways, where we picked up yesterday, well, I'll just kind of do a quick overview. I talked a little bit about, what people, what I've heard for the 15 years I've been doing this. That we got to find more information on this particular problem and other things. Um, here's a little bit why you should listen to me. I've been on the outside looking in. While I was not a retiree myself, I got out of the military and got into this whole finance thing. Honestly, unwittingly, I had no idea what I was getting into, but I started to see, outside of the traditional financial planning stuff, I just saw I was in UCOM in Stuttgart. And so it was a lot of senior officers, and I was I was like 30 at the time, but I just kept seeing the same problem over and over again, and nobody seemed to solve it around survivor benefit. And I got back to the States, and I realized, everybody's just giving the same information the government gives on this, but there's better solutions out there. Oh, unless you're a licensed life insurance professional, and even in that community, some of the modern technologies and basically just new products that are available, most financial advisors just don't know about it because they're good at what they do. So I got really good at life insurance because I realized that's not as fun. Most people want to talk about the Wall Street stuff, but I discovered this is the most useful, especially when solving this problem. So rather than do a comprehensive financial planning, we're going to get into the one thing. So, the problem we're solving is that there's only a benefit when there's a survivor. That doesn't help the military retiree get a return on investment of the pension, which has been earned. So we want to solve that problem. And we go through various problems. A lot of these are emotional. The math around all this is simple. We can do the math easy. But understanding the unique scenarios, because you're not all the same. You might have the same uniform, same rank, same time in service, same benefit amount. That's why the math's easy. That's the same. But what's relevant to you, how it impacts you is different for everybody. And that's caused by a number of mistakes. Again, these are draft slides, so sorry I haven't cleaned this one up yet. But so we've talked about all that. And then we talked about, what are we doing that's different? Well, we're not chasing goals. We're building systems where rather than being on a straight path of, all right, we got one goal. It's retirement 30 years from now. There's a couple other goals along the way. Send the kids to college, buy a house. Those aren't as motivating as we think they'd be. People save for it out of fear. And what I've found for those who are actively trying to do an alternative to the SBP, they don't want to have the fear conversation. They're like, hey, I'm getting this pension. I've earned it. I've been waiting for it. I'm going to go get another job and get some other income. But man, I want to get the most bang for this buck. It's frustrating that the government's going to poach my pension by paying for SBP. See what I did there? Poaching pension. Google it. You're not going to find us. That's for sure, regardless of what people say in the comments. So how do we do that? The first thing we do is instead of looking at the cost, so what's the system? Our goal is getting a better benefit for a cheaper cost. Get the cost, whatever you qualify for. That's what we don't know. Instead, what we can determine is what's the probability of getting a better return on investment. And we do that, by standard. Hey, we got to look at your health and wealth potential, not just kind of where it's at now, but what's your potential. So we build on that, and then we build out what we call a war chest. The war chest is a wealth insurance strategy. It's a category we created because I didn't see anybody else doing this. Instead of investment advice, which is all unknown, we can look at past performance and see how investments do and guess, but we have no idea what anything's going to happen in the stock market tomorrow. Versus wealth insurance strategy, when you have higher income, higher net worth, you don't need to take as much risks with all your money. Maybe redirecting a portion of your assets and income to a war chest is going to be more beneficial for you. At a minimum, we're talking about what would have been paid into the SBP over 30 years. Well, again, this is why this part of it's easy. We know what the costs are. We know what the benefits are. And I talked more about this yesterday. What we're trying to do is increase the probability. So, all right. So what's the problem? Why does everybody get hung up on this? Because this is how we've been brought up in the world of saving and investing. As soon as you got out of college, probably, and starting getting that first paycheck, and eventually someone talked to you about, the magic of compound interest. well, I call it the myth of compounding interest, because most people don't let it compound the way, or nor does it magically do 8% every year and compound that way. That's just the easy way to do the charts. But either way, eventually over time, we just have there's all these different types of accounts. The American system is set up where you have to have a different thing and a different person for which essentially it's all just a dollar. You know, it's all a dollar one way or the other. Why does it have to be so complicated and have all these things and different things? And in which case you need to hire somebody to manage it for you or to help you with it. But having been this person myself a few years ago, I just recognized, well, here's what happens is this person has to go, they're a small business. Just like Jen and I, we have to get more clients. And so they spend most of their time trying to find new people to work with. And it's hard to stay on top of everybody's individual plans. So that's what we advocate is, hey, if there's a simpler way to manage all this where you don't have to outsource in a broad sense, maybe as much, or maybe you only need the professional for very, very unique situations and stuff. And we think that's where we can come in. So we're not trying to say this is bad or you should replace this, but maybe you do this yourself, or maybe just a part of this conversation, you need a very unique solution. And that's what we do. So you can you can scale the war chest to replace all of this or just a portion of it. It's really up to you. And you can change it all along. You don't have to have a one set plan like, all right, this is the plan for 30 years. Because, I meant to find another graphic here, but you've seen those financial roadmaps. In traditional financial planning, you get this little roadmap and it gives you the waypoints along the way, but it's always a straight path. And we think we should be looking at a map, because at any moment in time, we know what we have right now, and we can do 360, and we can go to that next waypoint, whether send the kids to college, buy the house, retirement. But anytime along the way, wouldn't you prefer to be able to do that 360 and maybe adjust and have different opportunities to take advantage of it? So that's what's happening right here on one of these waypoints, the survivor benefit plan decision. If we have been working with a financial professional, we didn't know about this problem until now, or that there could be better solutions. Well, that's the missed opportunity by being too broad or being too generalized. As I talked about yesterday, all that does is lead to averages. What's average? Mediocrity. Okay. So if you are healthy and you can be rewarded for your health, well, don't we want to do that? Well, rather than setting up waypoints way far away that we may or may not get to, or complete lifestyles will have changed by the time we even get to the original goal, what if we just set up the entire system with you at the center? Again, apologize for the messy slides. I'm cleaning these up. But the idea here is our system is simply this. We've talked about privatization. You get more control. With the government, we only have the government options if that's all we can qualify for. Privatizing, you get whatever you can qualify for, whether that's health-wise or financially. And our strategy really only qualifies for those who are healthy enough to qualify for it. That's the easy part of insurance, but also financially viable enough to make it work. This is not going to work for people that are trying to save an extra $100 a month on their SBP payments, because as I'll show you, that ain't going to help either. But ultimately, we want to protect what we've got and what we have going for us. That's everything from your military pension to any retirement assets you've saved. By taking that money out of the stock market, or removing the risk from the stock market by leveraging the insurance company strategies. And what they do is they buy insurance on the stock market. They buy credits on the market, which gets us 80% of the profits, but none of the downside. So we can protect and profit at the same time. We're not trying to beat Wall Street. We're not even competing with Wall Street. It's a completely different asset class. You would not compare your real estate investment to your thrift savings plan. Okay, that's a mistake that happens in this space. So that's why we're systematizing. I don't care what the tool or the product is. At the moment, it happens to be life insurance for obvious reasons. That's what we're doing. We're replacing income. Your pension's income. Survivor benefit plan is income. Insurance is income. It's a replacement of income. Again, what we're saying is the misunderstanding is that you have to die to get that income replaced. That's death insurance. That's catastrophic insurance. That's usually term insurance, which there's a place for that too. But by doing it this way, One, we give ourselves access, liquidity. Most of your retirement dollars are in retirement accounts you're not supposed to touch till age 60 without penalty. And of course, it's at risk. So a lot of times you're afraid to use it because I don't know if it should be up more, down more. It's frustrating. And then the assurance of knowing that, hey, what we have, we're not going to lose. And we can still get profits to not just keep up with inflation, but beat inflation. And frankly, beat the COLA that everybody's so excited about that Survivor Benefit Plan offers. Like, is COLA really going to do a whole lot on a monthly paycheck? Not really. But then the other thing that really gets to people's crawl about the Survivor Benefit Plan tends to be there's no option for legacy. Not only if the spouse passes away first, you get no money back whatsoever, or you can't change the beneficiary. But even if things play out that's considered the positive way, meaning the retiree dies first and then the spouse collects, there's still no legacy. So we want to give you an option for that. So what's that look like? One, we're doing this on a map instead of a road, so we can always be flexible. And we know that these are the six main things that come up financially for military retirees, specific around the benefits. But think about what that means compared to every other American out there. What the military retiree, you're in your 40s, right? And you're getting all this, and then have a whole new life ahead of you. And yet we're told to still keep all of our money in accounts we can't touch until age 60 and be at risk in the stock market because it works out over time. Saying nothing for the emotions in between, and the fact that probably, as actually we talked about here, most people, retirees, tell me they really don't want to put in more than 10 of the hard years, the real income earning years. Where what they do beyond that, I think, increasing income, self-employment, retiring early, taking some time off, whatever. But that's a timeline that I hear often that people can think about. So if we want to, so how do we address this? Well, instead of, thinking about all the risks in the stock market, or do I have enough insurance? We're just going to focus on offense and defense and realize, hey, there's going to be reasons we want to be on defense and protect that stuff. So we can do all that, while at the same time recognizing that opportunities are going to pop up and we want to be offensive for it. So sometimes that just means getting some growth in the market like you would with any other investment. But really what we're talking about is how would you actually use the dollars? That's the whole point of saving money for the future. That is frustrating when you're in that space. So, here's a few examples, and here's how we set it up. So again, rather than being on the one-step path where, hey, we just got to work and save for retirement down the road, we know there's a lot of different things that are going to be happening. So inside our war chest, we want to be flexible to be able to access our assets for whatever may come up. And we know that these are some of the common ones. And in what we call the private pension account, now, getting into the financial terms specifically, war chest is obviously our name for it. But what is the war chest? The war chest is a strategy. It's our philosophy that is unique to military retirees. And so what's the private pension? That's the financial term, officially kind of around like what's happening here. Again, a pension is income. Your military retirement is income. We're just talking about income here, protecting income, increasing income. And so we want to design a private pension account, and using, equity-based universal life insurance, which we'll talk about, gives you all this flexibility to essentially have a private pension. Your military pension, your best pension till date. A private pension offers you way more than just a monthly stipend. So we're just setting it up as a pension protection tool, but not just that, because our assumption is you're not going to die anytime soon. So we plan to use the money. Typically, you're going to use it as a stream of income. So that's why the pension, kind of makes sense. You're not going to pull it all out at once, but you could. You could without penalty and without tax, because everything inside life insurance is always tax-free. That's just in the tax code, 7702. You can look it up. So, but there's more than just income taxes or investment tax, capital gains, dividend tax. There's more taxes than that. There's fees or taxes. the emotional tax of using it when the market's down, obviously the losses of the market's down when you use it, all those things end up adding up to be a tax technically. So we're trying to remove all of that, but at the same time, just keeping it simple. Are we on offense or defense? So this is the map from which we like to operate, to know that it's never like, here's the plan today and that's it. Get back to me next year. We'll see how it's going. Or we'll just, and then what do we say that next year later? Well, we'll get back to me next year. Next year, 10 years go by, and we wonder if we're even on the same lifestyle ambitions. Because I know, having talked to hundreds of retirees over the years, that things are going to change. And so I want to stay flexible for that. Or I want to show you how to do that. So, what's typically done? Well, typically, okay, so actually, here's a quick comparison. Maybe I should zoom in on this. Hold on. All right, so I won't go through all these in detail. Obviously, I go through a lot of the stuff in the book, but when I hit on the main points right now, all right, so here's column here on the left is a list of the various outcomes that we can expect from doing any sort of financial investment. So what I don't have on here is any sort of typical retirement account, mutual funds, index, because a lot of these things would be covered, obviously, for that. We're just talking about insurances here. There's different types of insurance. Survivor benefit plan is one of them, and we know what that is straight out of the box. Same with VGLI. Surprisingly, a lot of people are misinformed about VGLI. They don't realize it has nothing to do with SGLI, other than you can get into it for a certain amount of time after your transition from the military. But the costs are going to go up. It gets expensive. Term life is really only serving one purpose too. It's just there for a catastrophic reason. And then we have the more permanent insurances, which you've probably heard about, whole life and universal life, which give you more options and more benefits because there's an equity component. Difference between owning a house and renting a house. Obviously, you're going to get tax benefits, but requires more skin in the game. You have to pay more money up front, or you need other people to help you to get into it, so on and so forth. But what we're doing with our program, the War Chest, protecting the military pension, is using a combination of these tools, again, but the advanced versions, not these basic ones, to design a strategy that can give you a lot more beneficial outcomes. Because remember, the whole purpose of our presentation and our whole strategy is simply to increase the odds of positive outcomes. We know there's only one positive outcome with the SBP when there's a survivor. So if we can increase those odds, where for the same dollar, yes, you get the survivor benefit plan, equivalent protection or more, which is what we think we can do. That's really what we're doing. So we know the problems with, if we're paying this much, we're only getting 55% of a benefit. What could we do for the same amount going in? So that's the main point here. Oftentimes, the quick solution or the quick offer is, well, just get term insurance cheaper. If you're going to pay $300 a month for SBP, I bet you can get a term policy for 30 years or 20 years or 30 years, and therefore cheaper. So that's going to work out. Well, the problem is the probability of that paying out is even less than survivor benefit plan. And there's no way to get any money back. And we think we can do a lot better by increasing the odds of that investment. So being cheaper isn't going to get you any money back. It's nice for those 20 or 30 years to be protected or to feel you are, but the problem is what happens then? You didn't die, and now you're older. You've probably got more assets. If you actually have an estate planning situation, or you want to leave more of a legacy, and the whole buy term and invest the rest, maybe the stock market didn't work out the way they thought it would over 30 years. Now we have another problem. We're older. We can't qualify for insurance, or there's the risk for it. And then whole life is often what we've heard about as an alternative. If you've worked with a financial professional, They might have been selling whole life. Unfortunately, whole life was really designed for wealthy people for a long time, or is a really safe savings account, and it's just not being used properly. When used properly by itself, sure, there's a great strategy. The whole bank on yourself system, can work over the long term, but this is still old technology. It's again before the iPhone. It's not quite as efficient. Not going to give you the most gas mileage. Whereas what we do using convertible term and the universal life chassis, some of the more advanced ones available, which we go through into our program exactly how they work. But essentially all we're doing is we're locking in death benefits now as much as you can get. We're doing that with convertible term just to keep your costs low. Of course, we want to keep the cost low. We're in that game with you. We're not going to waste money on expensive insurance. What we're trying to do is get you qualified with the best company that has the best products at the best price for you versus just going online and getting random quotes. We know as independent brokers, we know which companies are good at what. And there's certain ones that have these advanced products that work best for the survivor benefit plan alternative. See, I can sell whole life. I have access to it. I wouldn't do that for survivor benefit plan alternatives, knowing that these other products exist. And so how are we using it? It just depends on how much you want to fund it. The more money you put into it, the better it works out for you. And but the trick is we're actually buying the least amount of death benefit over on the advanced side because we want to get your cash equity as high as possible so you can use it, right? So we lock in death benefit and then we advance it over time as you can put more money into it. But here's how it works. Essentially, you can fund this however you want. So unlike SBP or a term or a whole life or traditional savings account, again, we're talking about doing this a little later in life, higher incomes. You probably have some other assets. And so you're probably doing a whole reevaluation of your financial strategy anyways. And so by solving the SBP problem, we need to give you an account in which you can place your dollars, either new monthly dollars or existing assets that you want to protect and take off the market and get into a tax-free account. So that's what it's inside the insurance. And it's an account. Again, we call it the private pension. And you can essentially use it for any reason at any time once you've funded it. So it's just simply a matter of funding it, not funding it above the IRS limit. Why is there a limit? Well, because it's tax-free. But what is the limit? Unlike Roth IRAs and TSPs, where you have to put it in a certain year and you can only do a certain amount. And once you make too much money, you can't even do the Roths anymore. There's no limits on how much you can do based on how much insurance you get. So the more insurance you have, the more that you can fund it. And as we said, we fund it, we buy the least amount of insurance to keep the costs low and keep the ROI as high as possible. So that's just, that's where we come in as strategists to design these policies to make the most work efficiently for you and your unique situation. Not just saying, oh, you're a lieutenant colonel and therefore your pension is this much. This is how much insurance you need. I don't even know what, I first want to know what other insurance you already have, what your health status is, what assets you have in other types of accounts. But more importantly, what are your ambitions on lifestyle? Not your goals on what you retire and how big your nest egg is going to be. Those are meaningless numbers. We have no idea how big the nest egg needs to be if you want to draw a 4%, withdrawal rate, and hopefully not run out. So, okay. So I know I'm moving very quickly here, but that was kind of the point. I just want to get through the slides. But so how do we do that? So I think I'll go through this tomorrow and actually start crunching the numbers. So we've got a couple of tools that we use. We have our asset map. So again, we've been talking about maps. And the idea with the asset mapping is just to make it very clear on one page. You don't need a 150-page financial plan. You don't need a 10-page financial plan. We can do it all on one page and make it very clear and more simple, especially to take it home and talk with your spouse about the survivor benefit plan decision. We can simplify it for you so you can see everything you have going on one page. And then more specifically, this is my tool. This is how I analyze all the inputs and data that we need to help you make various decisions, whether it's the probability of receiving a benefit or how much you'd be paying into SBP and what kind of return we could get otherwise. We'll talk about all these numbers tomorrow. My colleagues tell me, don't overwhelm people with the numbers, but then we know you need to see the math behind it. But all our calculator is this is a combination of the DoD Department of Defense Office of the Actuary calculators, which anybody can go on and use. They don't tell you that in the retirement briefings for some reason, but so we're using the government data, all the actuarial data to do this, and then showing an alternative. So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. And I think, oh yeah, here's what that website looks like if you haven't seen it. So you can go download all these spreadsheets and calculators and try to decipher how to read them. But, we extrapolate the numbers. So here's an example right here I'll run through. So if we're talking to an 06 with 23 years, we know the pension is going to be 80K. So this is a 45-year-old making 80K a year. So what's 6.5% of that? So I don't know, around 5,000 or so, whatever. I'll do the math. So a few $1,000s annually paying for that. What does that add up to over 30 years? That 6.5% cost over 30 years. Well, in this case, it's $200,000. So, or actually $228,000. That's, again, using the government calculators. That's what it's projected out to be. There's assumed interest rates and inflation rates to figure out these present value analysis. But obviously, that's a lot of money that would go into SBP if you don't die. So typically, we're designing the war chest over a 10-year period. That same 10 years we talked about, that retirees tell me, hey, I can work for another 10 years. All right, so what if we do that same amount of money over 10 years? And now 10 years later, you have an account worth the $200,000. So $20,000 a year for 10 years, even if we don't get any interest, which we think we will, you've got a paid up life insurance strategy that's also an account worth the $200,000 that otherwise would have been sunken cost over 30 years. So 10 years later, we've now funded an account that you can use at any time, for any reason, no penalty, no questions asked. And even if you do use it, it's still going to pay for the insurance. But we help you manage all that. And then on the flip side of it, we also know that even if there is a death benefit, SBP is only going to pay out 55%, and it's only going to be on a monthly basis. So we're pulling in, 6-7K a month from the pension. The SBP is only going to be 3K. And is that really enough for the spouse? When the full pension's worth $2.5 million, wouldn't we rather get a death benefit closer to that amount? If we can put the same amount in and get a higher death benefit for when the day does come that we need the death benefit, wouldn't it be great to have a lump sum tax-free in the millions of dollars versus $3,000 a month? Right. And a couple of things we talk about. Hey, what are the probabilities? Right from those DoD calculators, and we'll show that on the on this one as well, where we're getting that data. But essentially, in this scenario, for a 45-year-old with a spouse that's just a year younger, it's only a 38% chance that they would get the equivalent money back. About that same $200,000. So those aren't great odds. Even it's only 60% chance they get the full amount back. And I'm not 100% sure this is this exact same scenario, but either way, it's never 100%. So when we run the numbers tomorrow, we'll pull out a whole new scenario. I think I was building out a test slide here. So I'll verify those. Well, anyways, we'll do it all from scratch tomorrow. And yeah, I think that's all I want to chat about today. I will just leave it with, hey, don't forget, we're going through all this in detail on person this weekend down in Virginia Beach. If you can join us at the Gather there, cool location. We'd love to have you come and give us your thoughts and feedback on this particular workshop that we're putting together. And of course, if you do have questions and you want to learn more about how to do it better for you, come and join us there. All right. That is all I have for this evening. Jen, anything else I should add or?
No, good wrapping it up with the call to action to go to our workshop this Saturday.
Yes, we would love to see you there. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.